The idea of Cave Story getting a sequel is almost as old as Cave Story itself. It's only natural though. Sure, the ending is satisfying, but the want to know what your favorite characters are up to will always come around. Something interesting with the idea of a Cave Story sequel is that it's entirely possible that we could have gotten an official one by now. Back in January of 2015, we actually got a huge rumor that floated around. During PAX South, a writer for Gimme Gimme Games was attending the Nicalis booth and said that during their visit, a fan noticed a file labeled Cave Story 2 on the desktop on one of the booth attendants. The fan asked Nicalis if they were really working on a sequel to Cave Story, and the attendant simply replied with, maybe, maybe not. As it turns out, the attendant that accidentally showed off the file was none other than the founder of Nicalis himself. Sadly, over 6 years later, we have yet to see anything even remotely close to a sequel to Cave Story, and this is the closest we've gotten to an official sequel happening. The only Cave Story related media that we've gotten since the accident was the Cave Story Plus port on the Switch, as well as some merchandise here and there. It's weird to think that that release was actually almost 4 years ago. With all that said, I still wouldn't be super excited or hopeful that a sequel might come later down the line. Daisuke Amaya has actually talked about a sequel in every interview he's held, but his answer has always been similar, in which he could totally make a sequel, but he has no plans to make one anytime soon. Now, it is quite a bummer to start off the video by basically saying a sequel might never come, but this doesn't mean that we can't ponder on what a sequel would be like. Something else that Pixel has mentioned is that if he were to make Cave Story in the modern day, he'd completely change quote. And this leads to a fairly popular idea of a sequel to Cave Story being a completely different game. New characters, new worlds, it would certainly be interesting, especially if it's similar to the Final Fantasy approach, in which each game still follows the rules of the series. Going back to the interviews with Daisuke Amaya is that he's always mentioned that he's hard at work on an RPG that has never made much progress. But something I made a video on recently was Cave Story Story, a teaser for an RPG retelling of Cave Story. Sure, it's not a sequel, but it is always possible that Cave Story Story is the RPG Pixel is always talking about. After all, he never said that he wouldn't ever remake Cave Story, and with the teaser for Cave Story Story being almost 2 years old, it's possible that something could be appearing soon about the project. Again, not a sequel, but something interesting to note for sure. I of course can't talk about Cave Story sequels without bringing up at least one fan game, and of course I'll choose to mention the infamous Jenka's Nightmare mod. Before I continue, I want to start off by saying that the footage of the mods I'll be showing are provided by YouTuber Eddie ERL. I was having trouble recording the game since it automatically goes to full screen, so I apologize for not being able to provide original footage. Eddie ERL's links will be provided in the description below. Back to Jenka's Nightmare, the mod was made by one developer, Schmitz, but was then later dropped, and then, even later on, was re-picked up by another developer, Zaro Su. This fan-made mod for Cave Story tells what happens after defeating Balos. In short, some time goes by, and due to Curly and Quote having killing and defeating Balos, and Jenka, now mourning the loss of her brother, teleports Quote and Curly back to the island, which is much different this time around. The island was changed by two forces called the Oblivion and the Genesis, one which destroys, the other which creates from what was destroyed. The whole point of the game is to try to figure out what the hell is going on with the island, and it leads to an interesting story as well as getting a lot of questions you may have about Cave Story answered. I definitely say this mod is the best we'll get to a true sequel to Cave Story, and I specifically left details out of describing it in case none of you have played it. Really, go try out the mod, it's wonderful. While we would love to see where Quote and Curly are nowadays, we actually do have another semi-popular mod that tells the story of the game before Quote wakes up. Sue's story is a cute prequel mod telling the story of, well, Sue, but the events of how Sue ended up on the island and how she got turned into a Mimiga. It's an interesting mod that adds new weapons and levels to the game, but sadly the modder who made this game, Bombchu Link, cancelled the project. According to them, the game was about 60% done, and while it is a shame that we may not get to see it finished, maybe what happened to Jenka's Nightmare will also happen to Sue's story, in which someone else will pick it up and finish the game. I actually planned on continuing this script with a bundle of fake mods relating to potential Cave Story sequels, and there are more out there. However, one thing that's more interesting is all the fake attempts at a sequel. Back in 2017, a Reddit user by the username Literal Creativity claimed that they were working on Cave Story 2, a fan-made sequel. They even updated us semi-recently, 3 months ago, and told us that the game would be out by December 24th, 2021. With this release date, they promised a Mac version, updates and DLC, as well as an inevitable Cave Story 2 DX. Sadly, no progress on the game itself has ever been shared, i.e. no screenshots, trailers, or gameplay. Hell, if you try to find this user now, their account has actually been suspended. It's pretty clear that this was a hoax from the start, but hell, I'm always open to being proven wrong. Guess we'll find out this December 24th, 2021. We also can't talk about fake sequels without mentioning the fake sequel started up by YouTube user Wind Fortress. Okay, while this was coming out, I did believe this one for a bit, but they often revealed way too little at such a slow rate. In the end, it ended up being a joke taken way too far by Wind Fortress and a couple of friends of theirs. Either way, I must give credit where credit is due and say that the animations made by Wind Fortress are quite impressive and definitely made insanely well. 10 out of 10 in the animation department for sure. It seems like, for now at least, a Cave Story sequel may never come out. While I would love to see a sequel, I do believe Cave Story doesn't need one. The game stands phenomenally well on its own, and while the official ports are getting pretty pricey, I will still buy and enjoy each one, I hate to admit. Which, by the way, Nicalis, please just make Cave Story and give it a different name. Cave Story The Journey of quote, Cave Story RPG? Cave Story minus? Just give me the game, Nicalis. It looks so cute, and RPGs are fun, damn it. Either way, thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys look forward to my next video, and until then, Nerdieo is out.